Hi, everybody. Welcome to today's edition of the CrossFit Games Update Show. I'm Sean Woodland with Tommy Marquez and Pat Sherwood. Last week, we ran through the teens divisions as we get closer to the CrossFit Games. This week, we turn our attention to the Masters, and across every division here, we're going to see some very good matchups between some phenomenal athletes.
Just to kind of get all this stuff in my head again, I've been rewatching a lot of the footage from last year, and I forgot that in the final event, we had the 60-plus men during Amanda do ring muscle-ups. It kind of blew my mind, so I'm just sitting back and want to see what they can do again.
Yeah, this is one of the divisions that I think is making the most strides in terms of what they're capable of doing, in terms of programming, in terms of volume at the games, and that just makes this year that much more exciting.
We're going to look at the 50 through 60-plus Masters athletes today, and we start with the 60-plus men, and the leaderboard after the Masters online qualifier has a familiar name sitting atop of it. It is Scott Olson, who is 19 points up on David Hippensteel. Hippensteel leads Daniel Walsh by 12, and then it's close. Spots 4 through 8, 49 points separating Clayton Corwin from 8th place Lance Schaefer. But Scott Olson, as he always is definitely the favorite coming into this thing.
He is
right?
incredible. If you're not careful, Scott Olson will put a comfortable shoe in your rear end. He is the most decorated CrossFit Masters athlete of all time. He's been the champion 3 times. He won the Masters qual for the 2nd time in a row. This will be his 6th time competing at the Games. He's tied with Mary Schwing for the most time standing on the podium for a Master at 4, and he has the most Masters Games event wins at 10. That is why he is the man to beat.
Who is the main challenger to Scott Olson?
For me, it's got to be David Hippensteel, father of Heather Hippensteel, who has been a member of Team Invictus's affiliate team for quite some time now. But he's the only guy who beat Olson in the Open this year.
How dare
he
he?
finished 2nd behind him in the Masters qualifier, but he's been to the Games 3 times, finished 5th twice. All of that was in the 55 to 59 division. Now he's aged up. He's actually the young guy in the group. And if you look at some of the things he excels at as a former triathlete, doing some marathons, some long endurance type stuff, you know, we get to see some of the longer workouts at the Games. So if one of those pops up, he could definitely make a push for to overtake Scott Olson.
If you're outside, the top 5 or even the top 10 in this division, it doesn't mean you don't have a chance at the Games. Last year, Steve Polini, 11th in the Masters online qualifier. He wins at the Games, not back this year, but who are some names who might be able to duplicate that this year?
I dug into that a little bit, and Terry Peters kind of jumped out. So he was 19th in the Open, which doesn't sound, super impressive, but this is his 4th trip going to the Games. He's been 6th the last 2 years in a row, so he's obviously capable, so he just needs to show up and perform.
Another veteran, Denny Hawkins, besides rocking an awesome USA skull cap at the Games a few times,
yeah.
He's a guy who's performed very well and finished on the podium. He was 4th in the Open, 5th in the Masters qualifier this year. But you look back to last year in this same division, he finished 2nd. So he's a guy who's got the experience on his side, know what it's like to stand on the podium, and could very well repeat that.
Let's move on to the 55 to 59-year-old division, and a pair of familiar names sit atop the leaderboard after the Masters online qualifier. Will Powell with 27 points leads Gordon McKinnon by 24 points, and then spots 3 through 5 separated by just 29 points, but Will Powell is certainly the man to beat right now.
He has to. You have to look at his track record the last 2 years. He won the Games last year. He won the Open. He won the Masters qualifier. He won the Masters qualifier last year. And you look at how he's done it. Well, 20 of his last 23 events across the Open, Masters qualifier, and Games have been inside the top 10. 18 of those have been inside the top 5. And then last year at the Games, he goes 5 first-place finishes. He goes 2 second-place finishes, and really was one of the most dominant performances we've seen at the Games at this Masters level ever. And it's hard not to look at him, and
He's
passes
jacked. The guy is jacked.
Oh man, he passes the eye test for sure, and it's just hard to imagine anyone beating him at this point.
A guy who I think might have a chance is the guy who finished in 2nd place, Gordon McKinnon. We all know what he's done at the Games. He's had some injuries as of late, but he's back this year. What can he accomplish?
Man, Gordon, he can accomplish anything. Gordon McKinnon is a beast. He just looks like, don't take this the wrong way, like a great bad guy in a movie, but he's a super nice guy. This is his first time not winning the Open in his age division. All the way from 2011 to 2015, he's won it every single solitary year. He stood in the podium at the Games and taken first 2 times, both in 2011 and in 2012. Injuries have kept him out the last few years, but with that track record, now that he's healthy, he could give Powell a run for his money.
We talked about the top 2. Who are some men outside of those 2, though, who might have a chance to get themselves onto the podium?
Well, Hilmar Hardarson, actually, I think is a good one. So he was 10th in the Open, 17th in the Masters qualifier, but this was a guy who was first in 2014. He took 4th in 2013. So he's got the history, he's got the skills.
I'm looking at a guy who did very well in the Open this year, David Gantz. He was 2nd in the Open. He slipped to 10th in the Masters qualifier. But you know what? I'm not worried about that because he wins the Tough Guy Award for this. You look at his resume and what he's been doing for career-wise. 35 years as a brick and stone mason in Chicago with those hot summers and cold winters.
35 years.
That guy can stand up to anything and just pass it with flying colors.
Winner of
so
the
look
Man
for him
Award.
to stand tough at the games.
Good luck beating that guy in, like you said, in the man department. Let's move on to the 50 to 54-year-old division, and a newcomer to this division is on top of the leaderboard, and that is Ron Ortiz, a 56-point cushion on Marco Casale after the Masters Online qualifier. But then is close. Spots 3 through 9 are separated by just 31 points, so plenty of men you can battle for a spot on the podium. But right now, Ron Ortiz is the front runner for the top spot.
Man, and rightfully so. Ron Ortiz could wreck shop when he shows up to the games. He looks like a superhero. First place in the Open. This will be his 6th consecutive trip to the CrossFit Games. He was first place back in 2013. He's competed in the 2nd most Masters Games events. 32 under his belt, so he's definitely the man to keep your eye on.
Who will be his main challengers in Carson?
Well, there's 3. They're right behind him on the leaderboard, starting with a newcomer in Marco Casale. He's kind of an enigma of sorts. He's a new guy to this division, first time qualifying for the games. He was really the only guy that was even close to Ortiz. He was 10th in the Open, but improved up to 2nd at the Masters qualifier. We see a little bit more skill, heavier load, so I'm kind of curious to see what he does at the games. But then 2 vets, in Jeff Goebel and Billy Goodson. Both tied for 3rd after the Masters qualifier. Both qualified for the games last year. Goebel did better of the 2 with a 4th place finish, but 2 guys that have some experience on their side, so they could make a push in Carson.
And then let's not forget about Freddie Camacho. The guy's been around a while. He's competed as a master 3 times. He's also been on a team, and he's competed way back in Aromas as an individual, but potentially his greatest asset, he's married to China Cho. So just, I mean, that training environment, that depth of knowledge, I mean, it's got to be worth something.
Well, that's going to do it for us for today. We'll be back tomorrow to take a look at the women's 50 to 60 plus divisions. Remember, games tickets are still available. Go to games.crossfit.com for those. Possibly the last time that we are in Carson for the CrossFit Games. The Masters competition gets kicked off on Tuesday, July 19th. We will see you back here tomorrow as we continue our previews for the 2016 Reebok CrossFit Games.